Good afternoon once again, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Steve Gregorian, President and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club. Welcome to today's special meeting, and I especially want to welcome our DEC members. And if you're not a DEC member yet, just give me 10 seconds to convince you. Your next prospect, job, client, and maybe even best friend is sitting right in this room. If you want to build your network and hear from thought leaders on our stage, we invite you to join the DEC. You can do so at econclub.org. In fact, if you want to sign up today, we will give you a free event ticket through June. And if that's of interest, you can see Megan upstairs at registration on your way out. As we get started, I would just ask you to kindly silence your cell phone so we don't disturb today's program. And many of you have been with us before. You know we always begin with a pledge and a prayer. So please stand and join me as we honor our country with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And kindly remain standing as our invocation today will be delivered by our good friend, Father John Phelps from Life Directions.
As I begin, think of a child under the age of 5 who's related to you. I just left the campus of Marygrove where they have starfish, so let's think of the children under 5. If a mother forgets her child, I will never forget you. Father God, I call upon you, however we know you, to bless this meeting, and especially the campus that will be touched and the president who will share, that the decisions we make and the way we learn will give these children in the year 2050 a life. And know that the life they'll be given is going to be touched very much so by the decisions we make. So thank you for calling us. Thank you for this opportunity to remember that we're here for the sake of our children's children. Amen.
Thank you, Father. You may all be seated. A quick special thank you to Detroit Public TV for live streaming our meeting today. And of course, you know, students are here today and always at every Detroit Economic Club meeting, courtesy of our generous corporate sponsors. Their morning already began with a private session with President Ono. I want to take a moment to let you know who is with us. We've got students from Catholic Central, thanks to Ranya and Uptike. Lake Orion High School Dragons, thanks to Elisa and the good people at Aon. River Rouge High School, go Panthers, thanks to Gibson and Raymond. We've got students from Northville High School, thanks to Barton Mallow, and the best looking group of Armenian students you'll ever find from the AGBU Manugian School in Southfield. Many thanks to Chuck and the good folks at ITC Holdings. So please join me in a welcome our students and thank their sponsors. Couple things on your table quickly. Our season lineup, we're loading up that lineup. We've got something for everybody. Next meeting will be December 13th when the leaders of the No Labels political initiative will be with us. That would be former Governors Jay Nixon and Pat McCrory, and they're going to talk about why they think America is ready for a No Labels ticket. It's also time to start talking about our annual Michigan Economic Outlook meeting. That takes place January 16th. So tons more on the website. Make sure you get your tickets before they sell out. Also on your table is our partners and sponsors. Make no mistake, we would not be here if it wasn't the generosity of those good folks. So thank you to those corporations and partners who help support the DEC. Of course, I'd love to tell the history of the 89-year history of DEC speakers, and those speakers tell the history of our country. And President Ono, November 29th, is a really popular date in our history. You are about to join the stage, and you would be the 14th speaker, but I want to give you a couple of highlights. You want to talk about history. In 1943, the commander of the British Air Operations, Air Marshal Sir William Welsh, delivered a speech called the Air Offensive to the DEC. 1948, U.S. Secretary of Education William Studebaker asked the DEC this question: is education in safe hands? And in 1965, you might know economist and presidential advisor Elliot Janeway, he titled his speech, How to Make More in 64. Dr. Seuss, I think, would have liked that title, but in 2013, then Congressman Mike Pence addressed the DEC, and exactly 2 years ago, Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo, and I think, Mayor, you were here with us as well on that date. So today we're pleased to add you as our 14th speaker on this date in DEC history, so congratulations and thank you for being with us. And finally, use your smartphone. You can be involved in today's program. One, we'd like you to take lots of pictures, and you can share those with your social media networks using #EconClub. And secondly, you can submit a question for President Ono using the QR code on your table. And those questions will make their way to our presiding officer, who we're about to put to work. Mayor Duggan does such an amazing job leading our city and its residents, and we are so proud to have him as well as a DEC board member. And you want to talk about connections? At last week's Thanksgiving Day parade, thank you, Tony Michaels, Mayor Duggan was the very first person to give his Christmas list to Santa Claus. Now that's connected. That's connected. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor Duggan.
Well, thank you, Steve. I gave my Christmas list to Santa Claus, and I gave my real list to Santa Ono, who's here today, and who granted it a little bit earlier than Christmas. We're here at a time of celebration, but in the last 10 years, it hasn't actually been like that. In fact, for a long time. August 23rd, 1975, longtime Detroiters remember it as a day of great pain. Was the day the Detroit Lions played the first game in the Pontiac Silverdome. And when the Lions left Detroit, it took a little bit of our heart away. 3 years later, the Pistons followed them out of town, but actually, the deepest and most long-lasting loss occurred in 1837, when the University of Michigan, after 20 years in Detroit, moved to Ann Arbor. Michigan hasn't had a very extensive relationship with the city of Detroit since then. But that is going to change 2 weeks from tomorrow, when the 186-year wait ends, when Santa Ono breaks ground on the new University of Michigan Center for Innovation right down the street. So I want you to think about what this means. You're talking about elite graduate programs for mobility and robotics and climate change and software tech and financing with incubators right across the street. So the students of today that are building the businesses of tomorrow can do them in Detroit right across the street from Cass Tech High School in the city, knitting our city together. We're lucky to have Wayne State University here in Detroit. We're lucky to have Michigan State extending its research in medical fields. But great cities host multiple universities. And to have the University of Michigan bringing the Center for Innovation here is going to raise Detroit's stature around the country. So thank you so much, Mr. President. And to Stephen Ross, whose generosity was so helpful, Chris Illich, the U of M Board of Regents, Governor Whitmer, everybody has made this possible. I'm going to tell you something about Santa Ono. He's not new to dramatic homecomings after a long period of time. His father, Takashi Ono, was a world-famous mathematician who actually came to study in America at the invitation of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Got his first job in academics as an assistant professor at the University of British Columbia, where Santa Ono was born. And Professor Ono went on to teach at Penn and Johns Hopkins. In 2016, Santa Ono went back home to the city of his birth, Vancouver, as the president of the University of British Columbia, president of the same university where his father started out. Before that, he was the president of the University of Cincinnati and was a world-class ophthalmology researcher. But when they dropped him on the campus of Ann Arbor 2 summers ago, he made quite an impression because he didn't know where he was going and decided to try to guide himself around campus, which, if you haven't been there, is hard to do. And so he asked the students. And so the students were giving the new president directions, and it endeared him to the community immediately. He's a constant presence on the campus, dropping in on student meetings, activities, concerts. And when the students come up to him and say, "Can I get my picture taken with you?" he gives the camera to them. He has them take a picture with his camera and then posts on social media, elevating the student's story. Is that an extraordinary leader? And so at Michigan, where I've been an undergrad in law school, I'm very proud of that. But we've had university presidents who focused on research. We've had presidents who focused on athletics. We have presidents who focused on the alumni. But what we have today is something the University of Michigan has needed for a long time: the students president. And I'm really proud to introduce President Santa Ono and the world's greatest interviewer, Devin Scillian.
What a terrific introduction. Thank you so much, Mayor, and terrific to have everybody here. I was so delighted when they called and asked if I would have this conversation with you. Before we get into the meat of this, I want to let you first talk about just how much you've enjoyed this job. I have heard you've been doing it you've had it for a little over a year now, and I've heard you ask a number of times about what it's been like, and your enthusiasm is almost childlike for how much you've had fun and how much you love doing what you do.
It's been an incredible about 14 months. The University of Michigan committee is amazing. Incredible group, a community of scholars and professors and staff and students, and the best alumni association group, 685,000 strong anywhere in the world. And so it's been extraordinary. And just getting a chance to work with the faculty, the regents, the deans to elevate a great public university is a thrill of a lifetime. It's a dream come true for me, and we have great plans. We've been in the midst of developing a vision for the next decade, and also a campus plan till 2050. And some of those things are coming to fruition, even in the first year.
Yeah.
And so we're very proud of what we have done, but where we're going as well.
Yeah, really great. I've got such a long list of things I want to talk to you about, and I definitely want us to spend time on this exciting chapter for not only the university, but the city of Detroit coming up. But let's go ahead, with everybody leaning in, let's start with football and athletics, if we could. Pretty good weekend, I might add, over last weekend. And, you know, in a vacuum, you've beaten Ohio State 3 times in a row, back very much in line to head back to the college football playoffs, an undefeated season. It looks great. However, you know, your coach has been suspended for more games than he's actually been able to attend this year. And there's a reputation issue now where pretty much everywhere U of M goes, there's going to be jokes about signs and cheating. And I'm really curious as to how you feel about where the program is right now, given this sort of a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Well, you know, it's true that he has been on the sideline for 6 games, but we won all 6 of those games. And I want to say it's really a credit to him. You know, the coach has talked to me about that situation and has said that he knows nothing about what happened, and I trust him. He's a man of honor. Everyone who knows him knows that. It's an ongoing investigation. We'll see what happens, but I just wanted to say just very, very clearly, and it's no secret to people, that I trust the guy. I think he is one of the great coaches out there in NFL or in NCAA. And he, the football team loves him, and his coaches love him. And I think the greatest sign of a great coach is that the team wins whether or not he's on the sideline. And I don't know if you saw that interview right after the Penn State win. It's a tough game. They thought he was going to be there until that day.
Right.
And then did you see the interview with Sharon? He was crying.
Yes.
He said, "I love you, Coach. I love you, Coach." And then he's listening to JJ in the Ohio State game. He said, "I love you, Coach. We miss you." That means something. That speaks volumes as to the kind of coach he is. And the coach told me that, if you coach a team well, it'll coach itself. And boy, did it ever do that. And he also said every single play that Sharon called would have been the same plays that he would have called. So that's a tribute to the guys. So we'll just wait and see how this whole thing goes. He's going to be back with us for the game this Saturday and the next couple of games, and we're going to get a win, a big win. They say three touchdowns, so I believe that.
Okay. Wow. But I don't think you take any of the, I don't assume you don't take any of this lightly. Yes, it seems we're done with the Big Ten portion of this. We don't know what the NCAA is going to do. Your first meeting with the Board of Regents last year, you called for the creation of an Integrity and Ethics Commission. So I don't imagine, clearly there was something untoward going on here. Have you gotten to the bottom? Do you think you understand what Connor Stallion was about and who put him up to it?
I've never met the guy. Apparently he was in a room that I was in. I don't know him. I haven't gotten to the bottom of it because these sorts of investigations, you have to be at arm's length, and so their NCAA is actually involved in that. Sure, yeah. So we'll let it take its course. Certainly I take it very seriously. This is an academic institution, to be frank, and ethics and integrity are central and core to what we do. It's a cornerstone to a great university. So as you know, people who have been found to be involved or to have transgressed proper process have been held accountable, and that's the right thing to do. So the integrity of the University of Michigan, I take that very, very seriously. At my very first meeting, you're absolutely right, at Flint, I talked about the establishment of this office, and we've gotten, I think, the best person in the nation to lead our independent ethics integrity office, compliance office. She's coming from the state of Illinois, and so she runs this for all the universities, higher education institutions in that state, but she also does it for the health systems and every other part of the state of Illinois. So she's coming from a massive operation. She's bringing all that know-how, and she's a person of integrity, and she's going to stand up really what I think will be a first-rate office at the University of Michigan.
Great. Are you confident Jim Harbaugh is going to be your coach next year?
I hope so. Like I said, we have to wait and see what happens with all these investigations. He is a great coach and means a lot to the institution.
As we broaden out away from just the culture right now of college sports, there's so much money now wrapped up in it. We're about to watch, at last count, I believe the Big Ten next year is up to 47 teams or something like that. I've lost it. I'm still trying to get the sense of Rutgers playing against Stanford. I can only assume the University of Hawaii wasn't available yet to make it even a crazier thing. But I guess I'm wondering if you ever worry that we're losing sight of the mission here. I've joked before, at Mackinac Island a couple years ago, Joe Scarborough said, at the University of Alabama, the number 1 is the only number we ever care about. And I joked that coincidentally that's the ACT score required for admission, but I do not intend to be a scold because I went to the University of Kansas, which of course is the high church of basketball. So I'm just as guilty as anybody else. But do you worry sometimes that we've lost touch with the mission of what a university is about, even though we all understand a college sports environment is a big part of the atmosphere of it?
It's a real good question. I'll be really honest. I just turned 61, so I grew up watching Major League Baseball, the Orioles and the Tigers, Lou Whitaker, I don't know, these guys, Trammell.
Of course.
Sparky Anderson and Earl Weaver and that guy in the Yankees we all hate, that team. But in any case, it was a different time back then. Yeah. Whether you're Brooks Robinson or Johnny Unitas, it was a different scene in terms of the compensation, the economics of the sport. Things have changed with television. And so, yeah, I do miss those days. Those days are kind of purist,
Yeah.
where the rivalries were more geographic, and you know, there is something crazy about student athletes going to class and also going crisscrossing back and forth across the nation. So I do worry about their welfare. I'm not the only one. A lot of other university presidents do worry about that. A lot of regents and people who care about the student athlete and their welfare. A lot of people think about that. So the conference realignment has just chugged along over the past decades.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it is driven by television and what will be streaming video. And so I do think about that, and we need to do that, keep that front and center, the welfare of the student athlete, as we move forward. We will most likely have two major super conferences. One of them is the Big Ten, the other is the SEC. And we'll have to wait and see what happens. You know, what happened in this round of conference realignment with respect to Berkeley and Stanford was kind of a moment where everybody had to think about those sorts of things. And as you know, they did not join the Big Ten. All kinds of considerations were discussed at the Council of Presidents and Chancellors. And so we are starting to think about those sorts of things. So to be honest, we do worry about that. And we worry about travel time. We worry about the impact on Olympic sports. So thanks for bringing that up.
Let's move to what's happening on campus right now. I'm glad that you spend as much time as you do, because that was my next question. We, at the outbreak of the Israel-Hamas war, we saw the protests on campus where we had about 40 arrests, I think. Now, there's nothing new about getting arrested at a protest on a college campus. That's time-honored in a lot of ways. But there are a lot of people, I think, right now that are wondering about what's happened to the idea of tolerance of opinion on college campuses, which used to be sort of its hallmark. And I'm really curious now as to where you feel like does it feel like a safe space to you, or do you sense a lot of bitterness and acrimony, especially at times like these?
Well, first of all, let me say you're absolutely right that college campuses have historically been places where there has been activism, where there's been vigorous debate. And so it's nothing new in the history of the United States. Having said that, I think you're absolutely right that one of our areas of focus moving forward as a university has to be to ensure that there's a diversity of opinions on our campuses, and that we embed in our curriculum and everything that we do in co-curricular activities to really support tolerance, civil discourse, and really embed in what we do. And we've been talking about this among academic leadership, what it means to be a human being, a good human being, what it means to be a citizen of the United States of America. We need it more than ever before. If you look at what's happening on the Hill in DC, if you look at what's happening in boardrooms, if you look at what's happening in every single sector, I think that that is central part of a university education. Education in general isn't as central as it ought to be. And so in our campus visioning process, I can tell you that that has come up over and over again. We are, as a university community, thinking about the importance of freedom of speech, because that's central to a multiplicity of views and discussions about that. And so that's an example of how important this is to the University of Michigan. But we do have to think moving forward about how to have multiple ways in multiple schools, on all of our campuses, venues to really model how to approach difficult, controversial discussions, and to ensure that we develop leaders that have mutual respect, that are inclusive, and who understand the importance of bridging divides for the good of our jurisdictions, our cities, our states, and our nation.
Caitlin Buss had a piece yesterday in the Detroit News that was titled, "Once a Haven, Jews Now Fearful," on U of M campus.
Well, you know, I've had a chance to, as you would expect, speak with all kinds of people in the community. And I would say first that that feeling of lack of safety is something which is mirrored across all the post-secondary higher educational institutions across the country. And it's serious. And it's not only
Muslim students are feeling
Muslim
it too.
students as
Yes,
well.
yes.
Absolutely. And so that is something that we take very seriously. The regents and I, the leadership of the institution, we talk about this constantly, and especially over the past month or so, as you would expect. And so we do have to place the safety of every student, regardless of their religious belief or origin, central to what we do.
Yeah.
And so we spend a lot of time thinking about how we ensure the safety to the best of our ability, how we, through what we say and what we write, set those expectations and really hold people accountable for that.
Well, and you must feel under the microscope as well. When the fighting first broke out, I could not believe the intense critiquing and attention that was placed on the statements that were released by not just U of M and your statement, but universities across the country. I don't remember anything quite like that.
I think it's unprecedented, and you're absolutely right, whether we're talking about Harvard or Pennsylvania or Northwestern or Cornell University, the same thing is happening. There'll be books written about that.
Yeah.
And I think it really boils down to the first general question about whether or not university leaders should be speaking about world events. And there's one group of people that feel, no, you shouldn't, because you're really focused on your education, your institution, what's happening within the institution. But ultimately, most leaders did say something, and that's because when you have this kind of global conflict and there are multiple tensions around the world, it impacts the members of your community, whether you're a student, a staff member, or a faculty member. And the reason why I think most leaders spoke up is because there was an outcry that you need to say something about this event is impacting our lives and our families. So even though it's not core mission, I think sometimes it's appropriate for universities through their presidents to speak with moral clarity about things.
Yeah. It was interesting, for another headline from about a month ago. We had gotten to a place long ago where colleges, American universities and colleges were those ivy-covered towers that seemed apart from too much of America. We wanted it to be more egalitarian and we understood how important a college education was. From the New York Times about a month ago, America is losing faith in the value of college. Whose fault is that? Two-part question, I guess. First off, talk about losing faith in the value of it. And then why is that? Where do we?
Well, first of all, I think there's multiple reasons why that is a situation which is very real. We talk about it. I'm on the executive committee of the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities. Thousands of universities are part of that. And so we understand that is true through opinion polls, that there's a perception issue in terms of the value of a college education. If you actually look at the real data, it's really clear. If you look at a high school student's lifetime earning potential versus a college graduate's or a graduate student's, is a huge advantage. The ROI is multiple fold. And so the data are really clear that the value of having a college degree or a graduate degree is a no-brainer.
I even saw a table recently where college graduates live longer.
They live longer.
Life expectancy.
Absolutely, absolutely. All that is true.
Yeah.
But still, the perception still persists. And I think that the reason for that is partially the university's responsibility. And part of it is what happens on TV. And part of it has to do with what's being said in government. And so it's multifactorial. And the university can take a role in addressing that perception issue in each of these sectors. I mean, truthful journalism, fact-based journalism, which, as I'm sure would admit, is there is a tension that exists currently. There are multiple truths, right? And so
alternate
really
facts,
focusing on that, and also truthful government. There are forces that don't want evidence-based information that is the hallmark of what happens within a university, right? And so that's happened historically, not only in this country, but throughout the history of the world. And so universities have a role in promoting truthful journalism and truthful government, right? Evidence-based governance of cities and states and nations. But universities also have not done a very good job talking about the value proposition. They've been inward looking, to your point, ivory tower, and universities have to, and we will, double down on our responsibilities to the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit and across the entire state. We will do more. It's a priority of mine. It's a priority of the chair of the Board of Regents. And when we do that, then people will understand the value that we bring to the citizens and to the state. So it's partially the university's responsibility.
But it's also, it gets tougher and tougher to make the case for what the debt, we understand what college student debt has done to so many Americans. To sound positively ancient, when I went to college, you know, what I paid for college felt almost like just another living expense in my monthly spending. Now it's a mortgage. And when we watch boards brag about, well, we're only going to raise tuition this year by 2 or 3%, that is not what a lot of Americans need. They need it sliced in half. Do we ever get to a point where we can actually get this back in reach of a lot of people without them going into debt forever?
So that's a priority of the University of Michigan. As you know, we have a Pathways program. We have a Go Blue guarantee. We're very proud of the fact that thousands of Michiganders go to the university tuition free. That's not something that's well known. We've increased that number by several hundred last year alone. And I will be personally working really hard to generate resources so even more can go to the University of Michigan tuition free. So that is really a priority of ours. We recognize that it would be wonderful if we could meet all demonstrated need of all people who are accepted to the institution. We don't quite have the resources to do that now, but as you can see, we're incrementally, in a very dedicated way, trying to make the education, an uncommon education, available to the common person, as has been said at the university. Yeah. It's really a commitment of ours.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the mental health of young people today. We spoke earlier to the students here, and you were, I think, very poignant in talking about your own journey with mental health. But we live in right now what psychologists describe as an epidemic of loneliness in the world. This very socially connected world that we have digitally has left us seemingly disconnected personally. And talk a little bit about your own experience with this and what you see among young people today.
Well, when I was a teenager and a high school student, we didn't have cell phones. So my challenges had nothing to do with being too connected to devices.
Sure, right,
but you're absolutely right. Our own data at the University of Michigan clearly shows that that's one driver of loneliness and one of the reasons why we have mental health issues. Absolutely. And we need to, as an educational institution, address that, not only through our research, but what we do within our institutions to really, through things like the Okanagan Charter and the Wellness Initiative, support our students to get them away from that addiction with devices. But there are many other reasons that we have a mental health challenge or epidemic right now. Part of it has to do with geopolitical conflicts, about a feeling of among many students that they don't know if they're going to be like we were. There was a time in America that the American dream was that you can always do better than your parents. We're not sure we can say that today. And so part of what we have to do, those of us that run institutions and governments, is to do everything we can so that American dream can be true again for them. Because that feeling of hopelessness or lack of hope in their future is a key driver. The other has to do with things that we can also address, climate change. There's a concern among many youngsters that what they see is a concern about whether the planet will be here when they want to have kids or grandkids. And so it's incumbent on us, because we have received the baton of the world we live in from our parents, and we had a situation when people could look forward to the American dream and to a future that was better than their parents, and we have to do everything we can and double down to give that to the students that are out there. It's partly on us. Yeah. And so I don't know if that answers your question. We are going to do everything we can to support our students once they get to the institution.
But as somebody who's walked that path, you understand this really well too.
I've walked that path, and if you are interested in that path, there's a TED Talk that I gave about the fact that when I was an adolescent and a child, that I had tremendous challenges personally. And the reason why I talked about it as a relatively new president at the University of Cincinnati is because there should be no stigma about talking about mental health challenges. All of us have loved ones who have had mental health challenges. And the first step is to talk about it so we can support each other. We can talk about asthma, we can talk about cancer, we can talk about a skin disease. We should be able to talk freely and honestly about the challenges that we have and how you overcome it so we can support the youngsters back there. And if you look at that TED Talk, you'll talk about the kinds of things that I've done over the past couple of decades, talking to superintendents, talking to principals, talking to governments to try to get more support for youth so we can address the challenges that you bring up.
Yeah. As we start to wind down our conversation, let's talk about this really thrilling new chapter for the city of Detroit and for the University of Michigan. Groundbreaking now, just announced this week, which is just now about 2 weeks away. Tell me what you see and what we'll see.
You know, I was talking to Richard Florida, who studies, he's at the University of Toronto, and he studies cities, metropolitan areas. And you might have seen, I tweeted out on LinkedIn, I think, a list of the metropolitan areas where startup activity, economic development has grown more than the year before. Detroit is number 2 after Dubai. And Richard Florida said he's bullish on Detroit and Michigan. I am bullish on Detroit and Michigan. Look at these wonderful people here. Look at the next generation. That's why I'm bullish about Detroit. I got to tell you, yesterday, Governor Whitmer has me on the executive council of Grow Michigan Together. The future of Michigan are the students that are back there. We want you to stay in the state of Michigan, go to our great universities, and after that, we want you to stay in Michigan because you are our future. And the state gets it, the mayor gets it, the university presidents get it. At our council meeting yesterday, there was someone, a number of people who've been in this state for decades, and they say they've never seen an alignment of stars like they're seeing now. Whether it's the business leaders of Michigan, whether it's the economic club, whether it's the leadership at every single level within the state, and also a lot of friends outside of the state, they've never seen something like today. And so I think that some of the recommendations of the Grow Michigan Together Council are spot on. And we have to do everything we can to support this governor and the next governor to make sure that some of those recommendations really come to reality. We got to be strategic. We can't do everything. Some of them, I think, if you look at the virtuous cycle of what makes a great, strong city or state, it focuses on talent attraction, you guys, job creation. That generates the revenues through taxes to really support the infrastructure and everything that makes a great city and a great state thrive. And so you're going to see that. It's going to be released in early December. And I'm going to tell you, the University of Michigan is going to do everything in our power to support those recommendations. Because as I've often said, I don't want this to be known as just the University of Michigan. I want this to be known as the University for Michigan and for Detroit.
That's fantastic. The mayor has a few questions of his own.
Well, it's the audience's turn, and there's some fascinating questions, things I didn't know. So the first one is, what excites you about the University of Michigan's hydrogen initiative?
Well, you know, we are one of the recipients of federal funding, and we have an incredible critical mass of researchers and students that are at the cutting edge of hydrogen as an alternative sustainable fuel. And so I'm excited about that. I'm thankful for contributions from the state government on that. And I think that we will continue to be a national and hopefully global leader in that area.
Okay. How do you judge Michigan's women's sports programs against other schools? What would go into a decision to take women's club hockey and make it a varsity sport?
Well, last time I looked, I think the women's ice hockey team was number 4, and the club hockey, and you know, they're incredible, and I'm a big fan of theirs, and you probably know I've tried to support them financially by paying for the ring fees at Yost. I would love to see that happen. You know, we have an athletic director, Ward Manuel. It's really his job to do that, but there are things to consider in terms of the infrastructure, but I personally would love to see that happen, to be frank.
All right. Well, somebody in the room is a hockey player.
Yeah.
Good to know there's an opportunity. With the growth of enrollment, there's been a student housing shortage on campus in recent years. What are you doing to address that?
Well, some of you may know that we have a lot of holes in the ground right now. If you drive around Ann Arbor, it's hard to get around. The traffic is pretty bad. And that's because we are addressing the student housing shortage in a big way. We currently have the largest student residence hall construction project anywhere in the United States right now. Phase 1 is 2,600 beds. The second phase will be about the same. It's going to be first-rate housing. It's going to address the affordability of housing not only for students but also residents in Ann Arbor. So we're really committed to that. And in our 2050 plan, we've got plans for staff, for employees, for graduate students. And so this is something that's going to be a long-term investment by the institution over the next decade.
And I think the one that you're building now is the first one for freshmen built since like 1963?
Yeah, from around since when I was born, since back then. Yeah.
Here's one that I hadn't heard. Are there any programs that U of M doesn't currently offer that you're working to bring back to the school? What about bringing back journalism degrees?
Well, you know, I got to
Yes, what about that?
That is something for the deans and the provost to work on. But we really are, however, the Wallace Center is really a gem. And Chris and Mike Wallace, when he was alive, you know, that center and how it brings together faculty and students to really talk about the importance of journalism is something we're very proud of. And so it's really a matter for them to discuss. I think journalism, as I said, is incredibly important in society.
Okay, do you have... so if you thought that was hard, you have thoughts on the future of U of M Flint?
I'm excited about the future of UM Flint. I got to tell you, you probably have heard that we've had now 2 years of enrollment growth. We have a great interim chancellor in Donna Fry, who's been there since 1986. She loves University of Michigan Flint. She bleeds maize and blue. We're in the midst of looking for a permanent chancellor. I met with the search firm today. We have some great candidates already. The community has been thinking about a transformation plan. The university plans to invest in Flint. And so I'm pretty happy about the future of UM Flint right now.
Well, that's good to hear. All right. They say there is a new Michigan Medical Hospital being built. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, there's actually a number of investments that are happening with Michigan Medicine. The building that you're probably referring to is the Dan and Betty Kahn Pavilion, which is a very large tower that will have new focus on neuroscience and neurologic disease, but it'll also bring many beds onto campus that are incredibly important. And so if you drive around campus, you'll see the skin is already on the building. It's been topped up. And it's going to take a little bit more time for all the beds and machinery to be put into the building, but that's coming online pretty soon. As you know, we just expanded with the Sparrow member substitution into Michigan Medicine, which is really terrific. And so we are looking at how we can serve Michiganders even more through our planning through Michigan Medicine, and we're excited about that.
Okay, so they haven't been able to stump you on a single question. But here's one. What went into your life decision to go from a career as a scientist to become a career primarily as a leader?
So what happened was that there was a former dean of the University of Michigan, Earl Lewis, who you may know is a world-renowned historian, just won the Presidential Medal of the Humanities. And he had been the dean of our graduate school, the Raka School, and was recruited down to Emory University in Atlanta to be the provost there. And he picked me to be his deputy provost and senior vice provost for undergraduate education. And so he was responsible for, as they say among faculty speak, turning me to the dark side of administration from being a faculty member. So it was University of Michigan through Earl Lewis that brought me into administration. But I got to tell you, it's an honor and privilege to be at an institution that's as spectacular as the University of Michigan.
So with all the legal barriers being put up by the state and the federal government, how do you assure the Michigan student body really is diverse?
Well, you know, the University of Michigan played a central role of which we're very proud with the Supreme Court SCOTUS decisions.
It was my father's ruling that was upheld by the Supreme Court.
Yes. We're very proud of that, and we fought hard. Mary Sue Coleman was involved early on in her first presidency. And as you know, Prop 2 came along and made it illegal for us to consider in race-based admissions. So we've been doing it for 17 years. And this past year, we had a historic growth in terms of the diversity of our entering class. You know, huge increases. And so we know what we're doing, and we're sharing it with other institutions. We believe diversity in our student body is really important. We believe equal access to a Michigan education is important. So I think that through programs like the Go Blue Guarantee and the Pathways program, that we know what we're doing, and we will remain focused on that. So the most recent SCOTUS decision hasn't had that much of an impact on us, but we're sharing our know-how with other institutions.
Okay, so I know it's been just over a year, but what's your proudest accomplishment so far?
The University of Michigan Center for Innovation in Detroit.
What a great answer. And related to that, although you know it's not my priority, what can you tell us?
I got to say, let's hear it for the mayor for his role in that.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. So what can you tell us about the university's plans for the Raka Memorial Education Building in Detroit?
Well, the regents have actually set aside money for that, and the provosts and the deans are thinking about that. We have resources to put into that as well. It's strategically located. It's a beautiful historic building. I know a lot of our regents want to see us have programming there, and we're thinking about it very seriously.
Okay. And Steve Gregorian has written up a bunch of lightning round questions, although you've pretty much done lightning round for the last several. But let me pick a few of these out. I wish I was better at.
Football.
Okay, I got to ask you this. What kind of courage does it take to go down on the field and throw those T-shirts up into the stands?
That's pretty easy. When I was at Cincinnati, the coach then, Butch Jones, actually, it's on YouTube. You can see me. He was like teaching me how to do a spiral, how to catch one, how to actually, when you do a touchdown, spike the ball. And so my dream, which hasn't come true yet, is donning a Wolverines pads and a jersey and getting a pass from JJ.
There you go.
I would love to do that.
That was very good.
Well, I'll go way off topic, but your presence with the team at critical times was just tremendous leadership, and I know it meant a lot to them, but you showed up at their practice, showed up at their buildings every time they were under pressure from the outside. It's been terrific leadership.
They deserve it.
Okay, more lightning. Last book you read.
Ordinary Man, about Gerald Ford, a great biography. You should read it. He's a great Michigander.
All right. Your very first paying job.
Burger King, flipping hamburgers.
Where were you?
In Baltimore, Maryland.
Baltimore, Maryland.
That's right, yeah.
And were you in school at the time?
I was in high school.
High school.
Yeah, I got to tell you, they had these brown and yellow and red uniforms. I gotta tell you, if you flip hamburgers, you smell pretty bad at the end of the shift. But I gotta tell you, my younger brother tried to follow in my footsteps to work at Burger King, and he got we call it is a sort of a revolving thing, a broiler that you put the frozen patties on. They come out done the right side. If you go too fast, they're not done. They're still frozen. He put too many on, and the whole thing caught on fire. He got fired after the first.
Oh, wow.
So I kept my job.
What's he doing today?
Yeah.
He's a world famous mathematician at the University of Virginia.
Got to get him to the right skills. All right. Okay, you could trade places with someone for one day. Who?
The mayor of Detroit.
Now, I got to tell you, that's a swap I would make. There's not many jobs to swap for. The TV show you last binge watched. Do you binge watch TV?
Murders in the Apartment or something.
Really?
You watch
Murders
that?
in the Building.
Murders in the
Murders in the
Building.
Building.
Amazing. You got to watch it. I can't wait for the next series to drop.
Okay. And then last question. What advice would you give to your 25-year-old self?
Be easy on yourself. You know, I was pretty hard on myself, and you know, I would give my advice that, as Charlie Munger said. Charlie Munger passed away, a great Wolverine, someone who really gave a lot to the institution. And I don't know if you know, but Charlie Munger, his son died at the age of 9 of cancer. And he said, you know, self-pity. You got to take care of yourself, but he didn't have much time for people who were drowning in self-pity. Got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps, and he did. And so my advice to me would be take care of yourself, but also remember there's a next day. There's a brighter day. And pick yourself up by the bootstraps, and I'm a person of faith. And so for me, the Lord Jesus Christ means a lot to me. He's there for me when I'm down. And so that's what I'd say. When things look down, there's always someone up there looking after you. And so for that, I'm forever grateful.
All right. Big hand for Devin Scillian and the great Santa Ono.
Thank you very much.
We could go on and on. I'd love to stay here and do that, but unfortunately my job is a timekeeper. So, President Ono, you are welcome back here anytime. Thank you for your amazing leadership, and we hope to do this again sometime.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, your leadership and your talents up here are unrivaled. Thank you so much. And Devin, that goes for you as well. It's always a pleasure to have you a part of our program. So, ladies and gentlemen, tell your friends to join the Detroit Economic Club. We're a really cool group of people. On time, every time. This meeting of the Detroit Economic Club is now adjourned. Thank you.